Let's rock.
All right, let's rock and roll. And remember, don't stare directly at the lights, or that's going to stay in your eyes for 45 minutes. So green light means go. Everyone, thanks for coming down to Austin. I know a lot of you traveled a long way away from your family, so thank you. We'll make this time the most that we can, these next 45 minutes or so here. The real purpose of this is to dive down deeper into the weeds of what the top dealer groups and dealerships are doing over the past 2 years, what they're doing now, and how they view the future. So with that, I wanted to bring together a really strong group, and this group has experience at all different levels. From Tim Keene, who is the COO of EchoPark, has also worked on the Sonic side as Executive Vice President, so very tight in there. Tim, welcome. Thanks for joining us and sharing your expertise here. We have Ron Bramlett, and he's going to give us a really great view of how a corporate employee looks at these issues. And then, of course, last but not least, Anthony Christiano, who is one of the original Dealerware users, came from originally Mercedes-Benz Manhattan, was able to use us there, and has since moved up to Goldens Bridge on the fixed side. So really looking forward to this. And you guys notice the lights are up, because this isn't just the four of us, the three panelists and me up here. I want this to be a conversation with you guys, because I know lunch was at noon, happy hour is at 5. We're like here. So I want this to be a continued conversation. So what we're going to do is we're going to have different topics, right? We'll talk on these topics, and then I'm going to open up the floor. Jim Robertson, who did a great job earlier today moderating a session, is going to walk around and hand you the microphone to ask you questions, to give us feedback. What did you like? What didn't you like? What are you doing differently? Because we're here to learn, right? So this session doesn't end here. Let's continue it in the hallways. Let's continue it at happy hour tonight. Let's keep going with it. So let's get value out of this. So please participate. I'm not saying that if you do ask good questions, I'll drop your name again into the COVIS drawing, but I might. Melissa's not here, so I can say that. So thanks for engaging in advance. So let's look at the topics that we're going to cover. So in preparing for this session, talked a lot, and I talked to not only these guys, but a lot of the dealers that I work with in dealer groups. What are you running into, right? We've been having these problems for 2 years now. How are you viewing these things? These are the top things that came up that are changing our industry, right? What are we doing with cars? Customer expectations, we've hit on that a lot today. How are those changing? Another huge thing is employees, right? How are we helping to retain current employees? What are we doing from all levels? And what are we doing to attract new employees? Controlling costs, right? We know that everything is starting to soar. So what does that look like? What are some strategies that are working? And then finally, if we have time for it, let's talk about buy-sells, right? Because those are happening in real time and at a big scale. So let's start here. You've seen the slides in the presentation today, so this is no surprise. Cars at a premium today. How are we getting them? How are we thinking about that? When we think about the numbers that Chris was able to show about, hey, we still have maybe 2 years before we normalize. Do we want to get back to where we were? But we're dealing with this today, right? And let's turn to the panel and talk about how are we getting cars to move that metal, to move forward. So Tim, I'll start with you. How do you look at it? What has worked in the past 2 years on the Sonic side and on the EchoPark side of how you're getting those used cars? What's working? What isn't?
Yeah, there's two sides to that question for me.
Yeah.
Lease returns. I mean, if you look at how well people perform contacting the consumer for lease returns, we're terrible at it. We've had to get a lot better. Buying cars off the street is a big initiative. And buying cars in your drive is a big initiative. Those are the 3 things we've attacked, and we've done pretty well at it so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the strategy that you guys used. Just thinking outside the box, they were here in Austin at the Circuit of the Americas race. That EchoPark was the title sponsor. And there's a great thing. You walk in there, enter your VIN, right? And you get a free T-shirt or something. So it's ways that you're thinking differently.
Yeah, we've got a couple of things way out of the box where we're talking to the largest car wash owner in the U.S., where we're going to appraise people's cars that's going through the car wash for free, and give them an offer that is good right there. You know, stuff out of the box like that.
Yeah. How do you look at the market? I know Chris's presentation was really interesting. How do you look at that as we went from having 17 million cars here to we're at 14 million? Is it going to come back? What's your thoughts on that? How do you see the market?
I mean, I see it somewhere in between all the things that we've seen. I think we'll know more April, May, because the manufacturer doesn't know anything past that. You know, can they catch up? You know, trying to feed the pipeline and get it through, it's not going to happen this year. It's just not. Will it improve in next year? We think so. What the new norm's going to look like, we don't know. You know, we all hope the manufacturer doesn't go back to a 100-day supply or 90-day supply, but when they can catch up, we don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe with the EV products that they're very focused on, but we're not getting a lot of information past, you know, April and May.
Now, a really great source of cars for any dealership or dealer group is the loaner fleet, right? You've got a dedicated fleet there that you've gotten from the manufacturer that you're pushing through, and Ron has a really unique position for dealer groups that I haven't seen that much, a dedicated loaner manager for Sonic. So you're managing 3,000 plus cars in today's market. How are you helping your dealerships, your guys and gals to keep track of those cars, to move them through so you can get to CPO?
It's an interesting, I guess, situation considering the past 2 years. Everything that's happened in the last 24 months, we've had to change a lot of strategy. And just so you guys know, my job is to manage the entire service loaner expense for Sonic Automotive. So we have 74 fleets across 18 different brands, from BMW all the way down to Volkswagen. I'm responsible for monitoring, managing everything we spend money on related to moving a guest around. So that includes the loaners and everything else with, say, Uber or rideshare, the softwares that we're using, all the partnerships we have with vendors, everything like that. So it's a lot to deal with, and the last 24 months have been really interesting. And I would say the biggest challenge that we've seen is getting the optimal mix of fleet into service. And what I mean by that is our 4 biggest fleets are BMW, Mercedes, Lexus, and Audi. And when you look at a car going in the service loaner fleet, the way it works, if you're not familiar, is service needs a loaner. It has to be purchased from new car inventory. It's going to be used for whatever specified amount of time, depending on manufacturer restrictions, depending on supply. While it's in the fleet, it is a depreciating asset. And then once it's retiring, after it's done with its service life, we have to find a way to dispose of the vehicle. So the challenge is getting the right inventory in that's not going to depreciate as sharply as, you know, some models will. And when the supply is constrained like this, it's hard to find the right model. So if we're talking about BMW, ideally you want a 3 Series or an X3 or maybe an X5 in the fleet, right? You want to keep X5s in the fleet for your 7 Series customers. For Mercedes, ideally a C-Class and maybe like a GLA, right? And because the supply is shrunk, it's hard to get what you want in the fleet and kind of protect yourself from that depreciation. So we've got a lot of wacky stuff in the fleet right now. I've got an Alpina in the fleet right now. I've got a crazy S-Classes, and was very hesitant in letting those cars enter the fleet. But what I've learned, and I had to really change the way that I perceive the situation, is the values of these vehicles is so high. I put a crazy S-Class in the fleet, and I can operate it for 4 or 5 months, and I can pull it out for what I put it in. It's bizarre. It's the most strange thing I've ever seen in the market. And you know, so we've got a really, really elite group of general managers that kind of help me change the way that I think, and we partner with everything. You know, we're the corporate office, but I always want to lean on our experts, like our quarterbacks, and make sure that we're doing the right things, and I'm listening, and we're working together. When you've got multiple dealerships under the same brand, we collaborate and we talk about strategy, and it's been helpful. So have there been challenges? Yes, but I think we've done a good job of pivoting and adapting.
Absolutely. And Anthony, this is a really interesting question for you because you came from Mercedes-Benz of Manhattan, right? 250 cars, kind of the peak, up to close to 300, kind of getting there. And then going to Goldens Bridge, from 100 cars. Now I think you're at 60 cars in the loaner fleet.
Actually,
75, yeah. So that's gonna, so
Go down a little bit right now.
it's different, right? How are you finding those cars? How are you utilizing them more to give the customers the experience that they've come to expect?
Well, that was the whole challenge. I mean, you look at being in a suburban dealership where people have alternate transportation methods. They don't always need a loaner car. They could jump in down the subway, they could hail a cab, they could take an Uber. Being in a rural store like we are now, it's more predicated on having an available loaner car, whether it's pickup or drop off, whether it's a customer coming in, taking their vehicle. So we had to really get really scientific with utilization of the fleet, right? So obviously, you can only have so many miles on a car at any given time, and you want to make sure that first car in is the last one going back out. You don't want that one to have too much utilization because now you're going to accrue the miles too soon. Now that car's got to come out of service, but you may not have another one to come in enough time. So, we looked at a lot of different things just to be efficient, right? Okay, how do we get more cars to the service drive faster, right? So we had to look at, days of open ROs. Okay, what's going on in the workshop? Let's look at the workflow. We brought in a lot of technology. So the first thing I did when I came up to Goldens Bridge, I was there for about 6 weeks before the pandemic hit, which in a way was kind of a blessing in disguise because it gave me a chance to kind of assess the situation, assess the business, see where there are some opportunities to improve. And one opportunity was, all right, how do we modernize the dealership, right? How do we get the employees to become more efficient? How do we streamline the processes in the workshop? In the parts department, do we have the right parts on the shelf? Do we have the right fill rate? Are we getting onto the cars in a timely fashion? When we do an estimate on the vehicle, are we doing the stuff that's been pre-authorized? We diagnose the car, we go through the MPI, we put the MPI in, and then we go through the stuff that's been pre-sold, so we don't stack and rack cars. So we incentivize the technicians, we increase their bonus structure, so the more hours that they can make, the more dollars they're gonna put in their pocket, and just kind of gave them examples to say, hey, listen, you know what? Instead of racking a car and working on 2 more cars, if you finish the cars you have approved and we can get those cars out of here, that's another loaner car I get back today. And then looking at the reasons why people were taking loaner cars. Sometimes, people in this area, as the pandemic started to kind of wind down, they were actually willing to still wait in the waiting room for the car to be done. So, we implemented express service. Now for that quick oil change, the first year inspection, you got the customer out within an hour or less, there's no need to waste a loaner car. So I think for us, it was just trying to be more efficient and utilize that fleet best possible way possible. So Mercedes also helped us too. So they actually, once the cars got to 10,000 miles, you had them out of your fleet, otherwise you couldn't lease them, right? Then you had to sell them as a pre-owned car. They did extend the leasing mileage up to 12.5, so that gave us a little more of a cushion to keep those cars in our fleet longer. The only downside to that is now it costs more of an expense on the all transportation side because now we have to do more reconditioning to these cars where, before the pandemic, every 3 to 4 months, under 5,000 miles, you're rotating the car out of your inventory, right, and bringing in a fresh unit, which now you don't have the ability to do. But, we're trending forwards now in the right way. To be honest with you, we're getting more SUVs in the pipeline than passenger cars, so our fleet's a little heavy, but we do have a lot of heavy metal customers, so an S-Class customer doesn't mind going into a GLS, a CLS, or GLE. So things are starting to improve, and actually by the end of this week, we're probably back to 85.
Awesome.
And we're going to be putting 2 EQSs, which is the EV cars, into our loaner fleet, just to try to get some, just some awareness about the car because we've had about 5 in our inventory and they haven't moved yet.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting.
All right, fellas, any thoughts? Last thoughts up here, because then we're going to go to the audience.
Let's go.
Okay. All right. Jim is going to come around with the microphone. Who's doing something different? Who has a great way that they've, from a dealer group level, dealership level, that you've been able to find cars, you've been able to turn them faster? What's working, what's not? Joey, I'm looking at you. Always have a plan in the audience, just in case.
I think for us, it's really just realizing that it is more impactful to keep the car into the fleet right now. I'm willing to pay the cost of the accelerated depreciation or the TAVT taxes, everything that comes along with keeping the car in the fleet longer than we typically are supposed to, or even potentially losing it as a CPO if the miles get too high, because the service revenue it generates is so much higher. So I think that's what we're doing different is we're keeping all the cars that we can right now. The really sought after ones, the higher line, Audi line, we'll get rid of those because obviously they're going to make the most amount of money on them right now. But But any of the A4s or some of the lower model lines, we're keeping those in the fleet, and it's helping. It's helping a lot. So.
Beautiful. Thanks, Joey. Anyone else? Any thoughts on this?
I actually, it's interesting because before all this happened, one brand in particular, we really took advantage of the way the program was set up. We would get daily subsidy every day a loaner was used, and we would also get bonus money whenever we would swap units out. So stores got conditioned to increase swap volume to drive sales. And when all this stuff happened with the pandemic, you can see the manufacturers trying to change the program to influence specific behaviors from the stores, and you can kind of see them do it one by one. And now it's reduce swap volume because mileage restrictions are higher. So we've got to keep these units in the fleet longer, so we can't get that volume from sales. And also, just trying to change the mindset of a store that was pushing volume that way into understanding what you just mentioned. We can make a lot more money on this car if we just hold it in the fleet, right? We can sell this car now and make $5,000 in gross, or we could watch this car make $8,500, $9,500 a month, right? And because values are still so high, I can run that car for 6 months, retire it, and still make my $5,000. And it's just a mindset change, and you wonder, I spent a lot of time wondering when is this gonna stop? When is this train gonna end? And I don't see it happening inside. And I've fought a battle with myself trying to depreciate units or find out where's the sweet spot where I can depreciate a unit and be right in it. And I just, as an example, we've suspended write-downs on all model year 21s, and there's strong likelihood I will suspend write-downs on model year 22s probably in July and still make $5,000 a piece whenever they're done, and they'll have 15 or 20K on them. So, but that was a good point.
Awesome. So I'm really excited about this one, about customers and how they've changed. We've heard it a few times today about the changing preferences and how the customer has changed to expect something different, right? And it's not just in this industry, it's everything. We as consumers have changed, right? They mentioned DoorDash, they mentioned Amazon and that convenience. Here it was huge in Texas. You could drive up to a restaurant and during the pandemic, you can get a margarita to go, right? That never happened before.
Only in Texas.
So it was closed, of course. You couldn't drink it in the car. But that has changed, right? So now we want, as consumers, we want things when we want them, how we want them, and we want them right now on our terms. So the best businesses, industry agnostic, have put systems in place, have pivoted to really focus and hone in on the customer and delivering that experience and removing any friction. And these guys up here, and I know you all there, are no different. So let's talk with you, Anthony, first. Let's go back down the row. Daily interactions with customers. How have they changed? What are you doing to meet them where they want to be met?
Well, coming from the factory store, obviously you're like a pilot for every kind of technology, process, program that's out there. We've been doing a lot of these things for a long time where, we've been writing up cars on the service drive board of tablet since 2007. We've been doing pickup and delivery since 2010. We've been doing MPIs with pictures and video since 2015. And we took all that and I brought that to this store. And I think what customers are coming to expect is that ease of convenience that we all talk about, right? Everything that we do now is all app-based. It's easier to get approvals. One thing when we started doing pickup and delivery in the city, we saw our approvals go up about 30%. And it's because people didn't have that, that inconvenience of having to get the car to the dealership, right? It was picked up. It was kind of out of sight, out of mind. I'm getting an email. I'm getting a list of what's needed on my vehicle. I got some pictures that support what I'm asking for as far as a repair. And people go ahead and they have that trust and the transparency and the ease of convenience and just approve it. I've seen that now take shape more with this clientele in this store where it's a little more of an older demographic. There's a lot more of an older clientele that's used to coming in, talking with the advisors, socializing with other customers in the lounge. But once they got into seeing how easy it was, especially during the core of the pandemic where some people were afraid to even come to the store, our pickup and delivery went from doing we write up about 60 cars a day We used to do 15 pickup and deliveries. When the pandemic hit and we were in the core of it, we were probably doing almost 50 pickups of the 60 cars we were bringing in every day. So that got to be more prevalent. So I just think that now the convenience of what we now have been, I guess what they've been akin to see that this is what's available, they kind of want that. And I think even our staff now has adopted it, and they've actually welcomed it to say, hey, listen, it makes my job so much easier. I'm more efficient. I could do multiple tasks at the same time, and I'm not playing phone tag with a customer. I'm texting over the estimate. I'm texting over the video, the pictures, and I just see that, number one, the dollars per row have gone up, as well as the CSI scores. So I think that's, in my book, what's really changed. And I think the pandemic has accelerated dealers that haven't adopted a lot of these technologies and processes to get on board and do it.
Absolutely. And I love the story you told yesterday about how when you moved up to that store and all the customers fled the city, right, as pandemic hit. So if you want to tell that, I thought that was great, just as a way to connect with customers.
Sure. I mean, it was kind of a good thing. I mean, so we're in 2020. We didn't shut down. We were open. We had to lay off a few employees for the first 6 weeks. From the end of March into the beginning of May. My old store actually shut down for 2 months in the city. So Mercedes-Benz Manhattan was closed for the month of April and May. A lot of our clients live up where I am now, have like summer homes, vacation homes. They all kind of left and went up there full time. And during the shortage of staff, I actually took it upon myself to do a lot of the pickup and deliveries. Number one, I wanted to kind of welcome myself to the client base, kind of see what they like about the store, what they don't like about the store. The group that I'm with now, Celebrity Motorcar, they bought their store in 2017 from Estate Motors. And when they were on their way out the door, they fell out of trust with NB USA. They really did a lot of unethical things to the customers. So they kind of had a stigma about them. And a lot of customers weren't sure, well, was that banner on the building really new ownership? So in a way, it was kind of breaking the barriers. And funny story I was telling Lee was, I'm driving and dropping a car or loaning a car off in their driveway, and they're like, Anthony, that's you? And I'm like, oh, so-and-so, and you kind of build a rapport. And we've conquested a lot of customers. We've got a lot of customers back. The one thing about being efficient, I tell my team this all the time, is that our surrounding dealers, they're overloaded. And I think we were talking about that in the last session where people are saying, I can't take any more cars. I want to keep on taking the cars. I'll figure out how to get them done. I'd rather have that surplus. I'd rather have that volume coming in and being able to, bring in new clientele, maybe some returning customers that we haven't seen in a while, and keep the people that we have. And I think, we've done a really good job as a store of becoming more efficient and getting more done in a given day.
Absolutely. And Ron, again, you've got a really unique position that you're able to interact with 76 different stores that have loaner fleets, right? And plus 100, and get feedback there. What are your stores saying? What are they saying about the best customer interactions? How are they changing? How are their customers changing? And how are they adapting to that?
This was alluded to earlier in one of the other panels, and what I'm hearing is the customers are actually kind of okay not getting a loaner right away or understanding why they can't get it. I guess because it's everywhere. I guess we're conditioned now that every business we go to, every service that we're used to, it's changed. It's just a new environment. And I haven't heard any real horror stories about irate customers outside of your normal, luxury brand entitled customer they're always going to be there, but most customers are reasonable. And we haven't had anything crazy happen. I haven't heard anything yet. So, or at least it's not that bad. So yeah. That's a plus,
Absolutely. And Tim, from your perspective, you're in charge of setting up big programs that will meet the customers where they want to be met. Talk to us a little bit about that, about digital retailing tools and how the customer has changed in your time in the industry to today, and what you see the customer being like in 5 years from now.
Before I talk about digital, we're seeing it a little different. Pickup and delivery is big, it's huge, it's not going away, but it's substantially different by area. West Coast, they want it, it's not going away, period. But some of our other dealers, Uber's okay, some other avenues has changed. So it varies by where your dealerships are, big time. Same thing on the sales side. People are getting so used to buying a car that's not here, right, and having to wait for it, so that's changing the consumer experience. And I think they're becoming more tolerant of change because of COVID, to be honest with you. They're more accepting to different ways to purchase a car. Our big initiative is digital. Truly being able to buy a car, soup to nuts, without talking to someone, right? Financing, selling products, the whole deal. We just launched it, with EchoPark, we have a great test dummy, we call it. So, we rolled it out to about 30% of our lead volume nationally this week. The data that's coming from it is, 10% of the consumers want to go all the way so far. And most of those want a car, surprisingly, far away from where they are. Almost every transaction we've done, soup to nuts, has been a car moved from Colorado to Charlotte, or something crazy like that. So that's surprising to us. We believe there's a lot of incrementality there. And obviously we can share used car inventory no matter where it is. So that's going to be a long-term benefit. And then, we have advantages where you still have brick and mortar. They can go as far as they want, or all the way. And we think that's the way of the future. We're investing
absolutely.
quite a bit of money in it.
Absolutely, yeah. When you can deliver a car to a customer, it doesn't matter. Me as a consumer, I don't care that car is in Colorado or in Florida or in Ohio. It doesn't matter to me as long as it gets to me. If I can just come to your dealership or I can come to the door, great. I'll take that car, especially today.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, fellas? Or are we gonna go back to Joey?
Let's go back to Joe.
Yeah, Joey's got some good points.
We'll give Joey a break on this one. Who else has it? But again, even if it's just a technology that you picked up over the course of the 2 years that you think is a really great thing that we can use as an industry to help advance the customer experience. So who's got one? Eldrick, you're the next plan. Joey, yes.
Big money, Joey.
And I'm sure, at this point, I feel like it's almost crazy not to have it, but video. I think video MPI has been extremely impactful, and it's all around the transparency. It's what the customer wants, it's what they demand today, is to be able to see what's going on with their car, make it tangible, and for the customer, it takes the guesswork out of it. It takes the guesswork out of spending the money and doing what needs to be done. And to your point earlier about the pickup and delivery, I never even thought about it that way. That for the customer, it's convenience now too. So they're much more apt to go ahead and approve that work almost immediately because they know it's there. You've already picked up their car for them, and you're going to deliver it back, and they don't have to worry about coming back to the dealership. So, that's probably been my favorite to put in place. And then watching it evolve to where it's at now, where you can actually have the technician send it directly to the client, bypassing the advisor, without any pricing, anything like that. It's just a raw video where they show the car, and the customer gets to think about it there for 15, 20 minutes before they get their quote. And by then, they've made a decision that they want to move. They want to go ahead and do the work. And when we first launched video, I'd say we had a lift of about maybe a half hour per RO. But even now, 2 years later, we have a lift of about an hour, total of an hour. So it continues to rise. Even just year over year, 33% increases in customer pay gross per ticket, and it's impressive. And the feedback from clients is exactly what they want. And then even that pizza tracker, put that in place as well, where they can see where the car's at and which stage in their process. All that's built into that video and that app. But yeah, it's exciting.
Thanks. Who else has one? Anyone?
Absolutely, yes. So in every one of the marketing emails we put out, their fees at the right time. That's part of that email. And also too, order confirmations. Put it in there. When they get that confirmation, they know that they are that they're going to get a video, and they know what the process looks like, and they have that pizza tracker information there as well for them to get on board.
Yeah, it's great because you can do that, and there's no lift on the customer, right? They're able to do that. They're able to see that in real time. They have their phone with them always, so it's there. Yeah, it's fantastic how not just this industry, but every industry has really moved the ball forward to help service the customer where they want to be taken care of. Any other thoughts, or are we ready to move on?
I want to add one thing, because we seem to be talking a lot about service. And how many BMW dealers are in here? Any? So So you might know what I'm talking about. One of the neatest things I've seen in driving service business is BMW is giving you the opportunity to drive, to look at market share by op code. And you would be shocked if you've never looked at the business that way. And in my past, I've never had that data to look at. And it could be brakes, it could be in any op code. Literally to know your unit's in operation and whether, you might see them once or twice a year, but there's so many different op codes that you have 2% share of that is huge opportunity that if you knew about it, and we're talking about fighting for less customers in the market, look at that kind of data, dive deeper. There's a huge opportunity in that. And you can tell if you're overpriced in a particular op code. As you know, and we've had great success with our BMW stores, we're only marketing to people that haven't been in, I think it's 5 years. And our penetration is enormous. People coming back, we lowered the prices, we made it more competitive. People that have not been in our dealerships for 5 years coming back to do service with us. So something to look at. It's worked out great for us. And if you're not participating, just try it. I was skeptical because, we have 7-year-old cars coming in. I was surprised the average age of a BMW coming into our service department. Am I going to give up gross I already have? The answer is no. It's incremental.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. Let's move on to the next point. Employees, right? Everyone in this room, for the most part, is an employee, right? So we all have experiences, and we've seen what has happened the past 2 years and continues to happen. It's the Great Resignation, right? People are not going, left work, are not going back to work and finding different areas. So how are we retaining employees? How are we attracting new employees? What type of things are being done in the industry to make sure that the best and brightest are working in the industry, staying in the industry, and we're helping them to grow, within the industry. So I'll go back down, start back with you, Tim. From a corporate standpoint, EchoPark, Sonic,
Yep.
What are you guys doing to help retain the Rons of the world? Not to put you on the spot. We're looking for a raise for Ron.
To his chair.
Yeah. But how are you keeping people like Ron engaged and attracting new Rons to the organization?
We've had to make quite a few moves. So for the most part, any commissioned associate that you have right now is probably making more than they've ever made in their life, right? So we haven't had a big problem there. They're getting, most of our associates are making double, what they were 2 or 3 years ago, just the sheer gross change. With that said, the hourly employees don't share in that, and we had to figure out how to get them to share in that. So we raised the minimum wage for us. We'll probably end up raising it again. And then for the past 2 years, no employee in our company has had an increase in their benefits. We paid for it. So those are a couple of things that we did.
Yeah, and that's huge from an employee standpoint. That's huge. It's things you don't really think about until you look at the numbers and you go, oh,
Yep.
The company is paying this much of my healthcare, my 401k, where I'm only covering this. So that's a huge retention
And
point.
even in recruiting, there is a lot of movement, a lot of recruiting going on, and you're talking to somebody and they're like, I'm going to lose this and I'm going to lose that. We just give it to them. You're going to lose 2 weeks vacation. Take 2 weeks before you start. We'll pay you.
Yeah.
I mean, just let out of the box stuff.
Yeah. What about you, Anthony? What do you look at from a dealership level? How do you see that as being an employee who works, closely with ownership? What do you look for as an employee, especially as you're looking to hire and retain folks in your department?
Well, I mean, first off, I think personally for myself, you look at the culture of the store, right? What's the store all about? Is it kind of like a family-oriented organization? Do they recognize employees' efforts? What's the average tenure of that employee in that store? What's the turnover look like? Looking at how they reward and recognize employees, you look at certain pay plans, whether it's hourly, commission-based, productive, and you kind of go from there. And coming from a factory store that we had a great benefits package, you do see a little bit of a deficit coming to a group. But the group that I'm with now, they're pretty open-minded. So for us, what we did now for any new employees that we bring in, your benefit starts on day one, where it used to be a 90-day holding period. So that's a big point. Similar to us, we did the same thing. We actually left Aetna, went back to Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and there was an increase, but we absorbed it and didn't get passed on to the employees. At the end of the day, being aggressive with technicians, we were pretty fortunate. The people that we did ask to come back, once we, got better from the pandemic, we got everybody back, especially all the technicians. There was some fat that we kind of reallocated. But, you know, at the end of the day, we looked at, okay, if we're going to take care of the existing employees, we know we're getting busier, there's an appetite to get more work done. You know, our technicians get productive step increases based on the hours they produce. So if you go over 45 hours, you get an extra $4 an hour. Used to be $1.50. If you go over $50 an hour, it's an additional $7 an hour, retroactive to the first hour that you produced, and so on and so forth. So we made things pretty attractive. We got aggressive, just to say, listen, you know what? We're making money hand over fist here. We want you guys to be just as lucrative as we are as a dealer, and we want you to stay, right? It's cheaper to hold on to your employer than just go out to try to attract new ones. And then on the other front, you know, we had to get pretty aggressive too. You know, we have, you know, Ray Cattina is a pretty big dealer in our area, and he's very aggressive with sign-on bonuses, tuition reimbursement. So a lot of these kids that are coming out of technical school, you know, they'll pick up their elite program tuition, which could be anywhere between $6,000 to $8,000 a clip. Master technicians, they're offering $45,000 to $5,000 sign-on bonuses. You know, B technicians, $2,500, and entry-level guys, they're even giving an $800, you know, sign-on bonus. So we were able to adopt the same thing, just to be aggressive, and it's actually helped, you know, bring people in. At least you have a kind of a bench when you need it. We're in the process of expanding, you know, so we're right now in the middle of construction. We're going from a 25-bay shop to a 60-bay shop, adding commercial vehicle to the mix as well. So we're going to be looking for people over the next 18 months. So I'm glad that we have the tools in place to go ahead and you know, be that choice or be attractive to people to come in and work with us.
Absolutely. Ron, I know you've gotten a big break as an employee. You're no longer driving, you know, 2 hours from South Carolina, from Columbia up to Charlotte every day. So you're getting your time back, right? How do you look at that as an employee and allowing Sonic to do that? And what do you see the future is of remote work in this world, in this industry, rather?
All right, so I live in Columbia, South Carolina, and Charlotte is about 90 miles north of me, and I've been working for Sonic for 10 years. And I do not plan to leave Sonic. And when I think about a question like this, I have to go back. So I'm 43, and when I was a young manager in my mid-20s, I had a mentor ask me, what does success look like? And I sat there and I said, KPIs, we go to the auction and I need to gross this much on all the cars I buy. I need to sell this many cars. I went through everything and none of it was right. And he just said, take a step back. What does success look like? And the real answer was, and this is what I've taken with me this whole time, is success looks like everybody on your team wants to be there. And how do you get there? And that's all he said to me, and I had to figure out from that point, how do I get there? And at that time, I was running an auction team. We'd go to Mannheim, Darlington, we'd buy about 100 cars a week. It was me and about 4 other guys, and I sat there trying to figure out, how do I get everyone to want to be on my team? And what I learned is the only way I can do it is if they trusted me, they understood what they were doing, what was expected of them, right? And I spent time cultivating talent, right? Their talent, and giving them an opportunity to make decisions, right? And that sums it up right there. And when I look at, I guess, my role at Sonic, I've never not felt supported. I've never felt like I was underpaid. You know, I handled that during negotiations when I got hired, so that was never an issue with me. But I've never felt like I couldn't make a decision or couldn't be a part of making a decision. And I think this is useful for any organization, any team. If everyone on the team feels like they have a voice, and I know it's a corny thing to say, but it's true. You know, at least to me, it's true. And they have some kind of goal or path together as a team to reach, then they're gonna be motivated and they're gonna work hard, right? And I will say, in this current role that I'm in, I've been with Sonic for 10 years. My goal is to retire with Sonic. You know, every day, you know, I deal with loaner expense. It's a big onion with a lot of layers that you peel back, and some days you're gonna tear up because it's so complex and it's complicated. But, you know, I enjoy what I do, right? And people that can find that, it doesn't really seem, I mean, everything's work, right? We gotta work, you know, it's America, we're gonna work, this is just what it is. But you can be motivated, enjoy what you're doing, and love it. And I don't know, I guess, I mean, I know I'm going everywhere with that, but it's just a unique situation if you can find that. And when I look at the GMs that we have, we've got a great group of GMs. When you go in a store and you can feel the energy, you feel like people are motivated and want to be there, you can feel it when you walk in, and those are the stores that perform. And those are the GMs that have like longevity in this game, because this game can grind you down. You know, the car game it's brutal, it's a lot of hours. If you're not there and you can't find fulfillment or reward in there, you've got to look at what's happening, you got to look at your team and figure it out. But you know, that's all I got to say about that.
I think it's important. We kind of have a term at Sonic, you know, pay people what they're worth, not what you can get away with. And I think that's the key, and I think communication's the key. It's a little easier in a single point store, but you know, rumor mill in the back gets going. You know, I literally, the executive team, we have a nationwide Zoom call, and it's ask us anything.
Yeah.
No agenda. There's rumor going on, or anything crazy going on in the market. When are we going to get cars back? We don't care what the question is. Transparency is huge. It's huge, especially with a company our size.
Yeah.
It's very hard to get, you know, the communication, you know, all the way down to where the rubber meets the road. So communication at any level is huge.
Absolutely. No, all great points, Ron. Thanks for sharing that. You too, Tim. Anthony, anyone else outside of Joey have any thoughts on this? Again, we're all employees here. You know, for the most part, we're all employees here. What do you look for in your job? What brings you fulfillment? Any thoughts on this? We have about 3 minutes left. We'll try and maybe touch on the next one, and then we'll continue around 5 o'clock in the bar on the uncovered topics.
I talk much better in the bar, by the way.
All right, so let's do this last one before wrapping up here, because this is a really interesting one as we're in these times. And I'm going to start with you, Ron, because everything's expensive, right? Think about fuel. Think about the cost if you're trying to buy a house or do anything today. It costs more than it did, and we're certainly not immune to that. So as you've heard in the presentations, right, customers have been more adapt to paying for something. Oh, I owe you fuel, great, here you go. You know, I owe you this, here you go. So, Ron, what are you doing on the loaner front? How are you helping to control expenses in a minute or less?
Well, it's interesting because so much has happened in the last 2 years, and when we look at what I was talking about earlier was the amount of depreciation a normal environment would cause you operating a loaner fleet. Now you take that away because of the supply issues, but then because you have less loaners, now you're seeing increases in other areas, right? Such as rideshare, Uber. That's probably the biggest thing that has, I don't want to say it's gotten out of control, but the increase has been so high that we've had to put things in place to make sure we're managing that. So getting a corporate dashboard where you can see all the spending that's happening, we can manage, we can put geofencing limitations depending on market concentration, setting guidelines on who qualifies for a ride, that kind of thing, just so we can get a wrap around the expense, because it can get out of control really quickly, but we still want to provide the good customer service, right? So to reach that outcome, the only way we're able to do that is if we do get these expenses under control. So this is something that we never even really had to deal with 2 years ago, right? So just being able to pay attention and look to see what's happening, right? Just because you come under your expense budget doesn't mean everything is optimal and with the way you're spending your money. So use data and technology to help identify the problems, and then put a plan together on how to reach the outcome that you want.
How about you, Tim? An interesting question for you is, again, that profits are through the roof, gross is through the roof, but we know this isn't going to last forever. What systems are you putting into place to make sure that you're, and Sonic and EchoPark are set up for the long term to be able to control these expenses?
Two big things that come to mind. One is we centralized advertising. And so we spend less but are actually driving more business. And we all know that the car business has got a lot of ego when it comes to advertising. And we kind of took that out. We, either we're driving business to the store or we're not. We don't need to be a sponsor of everything. We don't need to do the things we traditionally do. We save millions and millions of dollars on that. And actually, because the proof in the pudding, when you have to face a dealer, is, are you driving leads? My leads are going up or they're going down, right? That's the measure of success from a dealer's point of view. So we drove more leads, and spent millions of dollars less. That was a big chunk, and we're not going to change that. The second thing was people, and people's the hardest thing to look at. It's the fastest P&L effect, whether we like it or not, dollar for dollar. And when you go into a situation like COVID, you have to look at that piece. We looked at it a little differently. If you had to lay off people, normally you do it by seniority. We did it by production. So we're always managing our low quartile performers. We just decided not to have any. So we have less people, more productive, making more money. And so we come up with productive measurements, whether it's a writer, sales manager, F&I manager, whatever it is, because during COVID we did it. And they made more money, and you don't have any low performers bringing you down. And you can't have a productive measurement if 10% of your performers bring it down, right? Yeah. So we've created an environment, if you want to add people, to make sure you don't have anybody bringing you down. And it changed everything.
Absolutely, love it. All right, last part here. I don't hear the music yet, so I'm going to do this, and there's not a hook pulling us off. Whoops, I pressed that way too many times. Maybe I'll just let's stay. You guys want to do the next one? The next presentation? I can do that. Sorry, Chris, it's our turn. So this is a thing, this is a really exciting industry. I feel myself fortunate to have been in this industry for 4 years, and I look forward to the future, but this is soapbox time. So let's go down the row, 30 seconds. Tim, what are you excited about this industry? What are you thinking about?
I'm excited about the evolution of it, right? We've talked about all the risks, that are coming our way, whether it's EV cars, what's that look like in service. I think, we can call it a risk, but we're going to have to accept it at some point that, the manufacturer is going to go direct to the consumer. What's that mean to us? How are we going to participate? What's our dealership structure going to look like? You can fight it, or you can figure out how to win in it. That's exciting to me. I've always believed, I've been in this business longer than I'd like to admit, and I've always thought it needs to evolve. And so I'm excited about it. The digital side of it, the complexity of that, life cycle management, which we've never done well. We sit here and talk about life cycle management, what it means. We hired a revenue officer that's not only looking at how do we get them back in the service department, but could we sell them insurance? What are other things they need if we hit them at the right time in their ownership that they need anyway that we can provide other than the things we're used to? And we're going way out of the box with that. And so that's how we're combating some of these, what we think are fears, in the industry.
Yeah. Awesome. Ron, soapbox is yours.
I'm interested to see what things look like 10 years from now. Because I think about 10 years ago, or even 20 years ago, just seeing navigation in a car was bizarre to me, And now what is it going to be 10, 20 years from now? Are we going to have those autonomous vehicles that don't have steering wheels? Are we, who knows? All the stuff that we thought was crazy with technology, there's just no telling. So I'm excited, excited to be a part of this. And, thankfully Sonic is really good at adapting with technology and seeing how we can take advantage of that, and just looking forward to the future.
Anthony, bring us home.
Yeah, same thing. Technology has really been exciting and it's intriguing, and I think the speed in which our business keeps on changing is the fun part of it. It's going to give you a new challenge. It's going to keep us always thinking forward, never resting on our laurels, coming with new processes. And for me, the excitement is how do we keep on evolving the customer experience and how we can make it seamless for them to continue to do business with us. And I think that's going to be the caveat to keep those customers coming to our stores rather to our competition.
Awesome. Guys, thanks for your time. Joey, thank you. What else? Thank you.